Hello and welcome to today's Aquarium at Home live stream. Today is all about snakes. And who do we have here? We have Susie Grant. And Susie, who are you holding?
I am holding one of our ambassador animals. This is a black rat snake, or sometimes called an eastern rat snake.
All right. So, first of all, for people who are joining, thank you for joining us for today's live stream. We do try and do these once a day at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And I know that some of you probably are a little bit wary of the fact that we're doing one on snakes, but rest assured you are safe on the other side of your iPhones and computer monitors. They're not going to hurt you. But Susie, why don't you tell us a little bit about, you mentioned animal ambassadors, and for people who maybe have never watched one of these live streams, aren't familiar with that term, can you tell us a little bit about what an animal ambassador is and what it does?
Yes, within our education department, we have several animals that serve as education ambassadors, meaning they help us, the humans, to have our guests, whether they be here in person or across the internet, to understand a little bit more about the world around them by being able to get up close and personal with some animals that maybe you see in your backyard, or maybe they're a little elusive and kind of hard to see. We just want these animals to help us give people a better understanding of the animals that we share our planet with.
And in the case of snakes in particular, it seems like they've got a little bit of a PR problem. A lot of people are a little bit nervous around them. Some people might even be afraid of them. But hopefully, in the course of today's live stream, you'll come to, if not love them, maybe you can come to appreciate them, because snakes do serve some pretty important roles in the ecosystem.
Snakes to me are some of the most amazing animals, and some of the reasons that people are a little nervous around them is they are so very different from us. I mean, first of all, they're covered with scales, and they don't have any legs, and they have that forked tongue. But all of those are important adaptations that help them to survive and to fill their niche or their role in our ecosystem.
Right. Looks like we already have a couple of questions coming in, so keep those coming. Susie is more than happy to answer these. Susie is one of our most senior educators here at the aquarium, and she has answered a lot of questions in the last 26 years?
Oh, it's been 25 years.
25 years. So she is more than capable and happy to answer those questions. But the first one we've got for today is from Ashley King-Cheros, who is frequent of these live streams. She wants to know, does the rat snake lay eggs or does it have live birth?
That is an excellent question, and our rat snake does lay eggs. Now, rat snakes, like many other snakes, do not need any parental care, and so the female will find a nice hollow space, maybe under a stump, or find an old burrow that's been abandoned, and then she'll lay the eggs, and then she leaves, and those little ones will stay in the eggs incubating. When they're ready to hatch, they've got to be able to get out of the egg. And let me show you just kind of an example of what an egg may look like. This is an egg from a pine snake, so it's another type of snake, but it would be similar to what you might see with a rat snake. It has kind of a tough leathery shell, and when those baby snakes are ready to hatch out of the egg, they have one special tooth that grows right on the end of their nose, and it's called an egg tooth, because that egg tooth's job is simply to split open that egg. And once they've got a slit in the egg, then they can start to wiggle and make their way out of the egg and make their way up above ground. And like I said, they don't need their parent. They are perfectly capable of taking care of themselves from the day they come out of that egg.
It's pretty impressive for an animal with no limbs.
It really is. They're really amazing. Snakes, while they don't have legs, they can still do a lot of the same things that you and I might like to do. They can climb a tree, they can go swimming, they can crawl across the ground, they can even sometimes scale the sides of a building.
Wow, and I understand that some of them can even dig holes, which seems remarkable.
Many of them do take advantage of holes that are already there, but there are a few snakes that can use their snout to help them to dig a hole.
Very, very impressive. So Sybil Gore says, hi Susie, wish every child could learn to like snakes.
I wish they could too. Snakes are one of those that are really and truly most misunderstood. And sometimes it's a taught thing, and sometimes it is a natural fear that people work hard to overcome.
I used to have, to insert myself into this live stream, I used to be very much afraid of spiders, and I had a philosophy a theory that people were either afraid of spiders or snakes, but rarely both, and rarely neither. But I have learned to love spiders. My father, who probably is not watching this, is still afraid of snakes, but I am convinced that if you're just around them enough, you can learn to love the things that you maybe are afraid of.
Well, and sometimes it's gaining an understanding of those animals and how they serve their purpose or their job in the environment. What is it that they're doing out there? And so for like a snake like this, and with most of our snakes, they are an important part of the food chain because they are a predator, which means that they are going to help eat maybe some of those other animals that we're not so crazy about either. One thing that maybe you've never thought about before is how many people like to eat pizza? If you like pizza, then you really should be very appreciative of the snake, even if you don't necessarily love them, but you should appreciate them because one of the most important jobs that they do is help with rodent control. You know, it is estimated that one pair of mice, if you were to add up in 1 year's time all their descendants, that means their babies, their grandbabies, their great-grandbabies, and so on down the line, in just 1 year, one pair of mice can be responsible for nearly 20,000 young mice. And so a snake like this that helps to eat those rodents is really preventing a lot of those rodents from moving into our house and maybe eating those same ingredients that we need to make our pizza.
All right. We have a couple more questions that have come in from Ashley King Chero. She's asked a couple questions, so I'll just combine them. How long can the rat snake grow, and how much does she weigh?
Oh, well, that's a really good question. Those are both good questions. And so rat snakes generally are going to be anywhere from about 3 to 5 feet, but they can get to be 7 or 8 feet depending on the individual. And as far as how much they weigh, she right now, or this particular one, is probably less than 5 pounds.
So definitely not a great burden to be cradling there.
No.
And those of you who are afraid of snakes, you might notice that this snake is pretty chill. She's not doing a whole lot. She's just kind of, is she?
We don't really know.
Oh, okay. Well, this snake is not doing a lot. This snake is just kind of hanging out, very placid, very calm. Are they always like this?
Not all snakes are, but rat snakes in particular tend to have a pretty mellow disposition, and this snake is very used to going out and meeting a lot of people. One of the things that I like to point out is that I don't really have to hold the snake. It is resting in my arms, much like it might rest in a tree branch or on the ground, but it's not making any attempt to go anywhere because it's not really worried about things right now. It feels safe, it feels secure, and so it's pretty hang out.
So Anya Sievers would like to know on behalf of 10-year-old Nikolai, are rat snakes venomous?
They are not. Rat snakes belong to a group of snakes called constrictors, which means that they wrap their body around their prey. They basically, you can do a little experiment, and if you were to put your hand on your stomach and feel yourself breathe, you can feel your stomach go in and out as your lungs expand and deflate. And what the snake does is it wraps around the middle or the stomach of its prey item. It's also feeling for that breathing, and as the lungs deflate, they can tighten up, kind of like tightening up a belt so that they cut off the oxygen supply. And that's what will kill the prey item, and then they're ready to eat it.
Now, no one has asked, at least not that I can see so far, but I would like to know, what do rat snakes eat? I mean, are they solely feeding on rodents, or do they feed on other things as well?
They do feed on a lot of other things. So rats and other rodents are some of their primary dietary sources. However, they will eat other animals, including frogs or lizards. They will eat birds and bird eggs, and even bats, and just about anything that they can catch.
Marcy Puglisi, I am so sorry. I am going to mispronounce names. I always try and do a disclaimer because my pronunciation is not what it probably should be for hosting a live stream like this. But let's just say Marcy would like to know on behalf of 6-year-old Luca, what snakes make the best pet?
Well, that's a great question. You want to really do your research to find out if you want a snake for a pet, because you do have to be able to feed them rodents, and oftentimes that's going to be frozen rodents. There are a lot of different snakes available in the pet trade, including things like king snakes and corn snakes, which are a type of rat snake. And so you do want to look for things that are going to have those more mild dispositions. And so things like a rat snake tend to be okay. But you do want to, like I said, do your research, because there's a lot that goes into keeping a snake. That you not only need to watch their diets, but you also want to make sure that their temperature is correct. A lot of times they are what we would call an ectothermic animal, meaning that they depend on an outside temperature to warm or cool their body. So you're going to need a heat source for them. you want to know what time of day your snake is going to be most active.
All right, so it looks like we finally cracked 100 live viewers simultaneously. I was worried that we wouldn't do it. I thought that maybe today would be the day that now we've gone below 100. But anyway, for a second, we were above 100, which means that there are at least 100 people who are, if not snake lovers, at least willing to learn a little bit more about them. And for those of you who are joining the stream a little bit late, Susie, what species of snake are you holding?
This is an eastern rat snake or a black rat snake. It gets its name primarily because of the color that you see, as well as what it likes to eat. And a favorite meal is going to be those rodents.
And again, if you're late to join the feed, we are asking all of your questions to Susie, so please type them down in the comments. Even if they aren't necessarily about snakes, I will give you a pass and ask them anyway if they seem like something that Susie can answer. So Ashley Fleming would like to know, what are some ways to identify venomous snakes? That's a pretty important one.
It is a very important one. And so one of the easiest things to do, and a lot of people say they don't want to get that close, is but really just kind of watch them and look at their eyes. In our area, all the non-venomous snakes have a round pupil, just like you and I do. That means the black part of their eye is going to be a circle. Whereas those that have venom, again, here in our area, are going to have a more cat-like pupil or more of like a slit. There are also some ways of looking for different types of patterns on their bodies. The ones that we have to worry about primarily here in our area are going to be rattlesnakes, which are going to have that telltale rattle, and then the copperhead. And copperheads are often mistaken for our corn snakes. And so I did bring a picture of a copperhead. And one of the things that you can look for is the shape of the pattern on their body. You can see it's kind of an hourglass pattern, so it's wide on the sides and gets narrow as it crosses the back. And that's a good way of being able to identify the copperhead.
Looks like we got some more questions coming in. Thank you for sharing those. Natalie Deering would like to know, on behalf of Peyton, how long do snakes usually sleep, and do they sleep at night or during the day?
Again, that's a great question, and it does vary depending on the snakes. Some snakes tend to be more diurnal or active during the day. Others tend to be a little more nocturnal or more active at night. And so it does depend on the species. I'm sorry, repeat the rest of that question again.
Do they sleep at night or during the day, and how long do they sleep?
And again, that's kind of dependent on the snake itself. They're not quite like us that we need a certain number of hours of sleep at a time. So they may take smaller, shorter naps and then wake up and move around a little bit more. The one exception to that may be during cold weather, and then a lot of our snakes do what we call brumation. It's similar to hibernation, except that they're not totally asleep where they don't wake up. Instead, they can wake up to do things like get a drink of water if they need to.
Okay. And as the weather is starting to warm outside, people who maybe have not seen snakes all winter long, this might be the time of year when they start to show up. So
you are going to start seeing more snakes. As a matter of fact, my children said they found 3 snakes one day walking around at our house.
So even though many of you are stuck at home, we understand obviously that's the situation a lot of people find themselves in. If you're able to, go out in your backyard. We have actually a lot of resources on our website at tnaqua.org in our Aquarium at Home section that has options for you to do some activities that involve doing science at home in your own backyard, making use of the space that you've got to be inquisitive about the world around you. And who knows, there's a lot of wildlife that lives in our backyards that if you don't look for it, you might not see it, but it's still probably there.
And you got to remember that a lot of times you're not going to see the animals, especially things like snakes that tend to be a little secretive and shy. Well, don't think about snakes being shy, but they really don't want to run into us because we're like big giants to them. And so they just as soon stay and keep their distance from us. But one of the things that you can look for are clues that they have been around. And so what might a clue be that a snake has been around? And one of the easiest things to look for is a shed skin. Because as snakes grow, they do have to shed their skin. And so a shed skin is often kind of paper thin like this. Sometimes you'll see some different coloration and markings and things on them. And one of the things that I find really amazing is, if you watch our snake, you'll see that our snake never blinks its eyes. And that's because snakes don't have eyelids. So even when they're sound asleep, their eyes are wide open. instead of having eyelids, they do have a protective scale that covers their eyes. And when you look carefully at the shed, you can even see where that scale over the eyes is shed. So oftentimes when we're working with our ambassador snakes like this, we can tell when they're about ready to shed because they'll kind of turn a milky color. They're, particularly those eye scales will look almost kind of clouded of what we call blue. And then a few days later, that's when they're going to shed their skin.
So how often do snakes shed?
It really depends on how often they're finding food and how fast they're growing. So young snakes are going to shed more frequently than adult snakes. Ours shed pretty frequently because they are guaranteed a particular diet, on a regular basis. They don't have to work too hard for their food. And so we get a shed from them about every couple of months or so.
Corey Hagan says, always great to see and learn from the wonderful staff at the aquarium. Thank you. Corey, I won't say you're welcome because I'm not the one doing the work, but
I will say you're welcome.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you to all of you who are joining us. I know this is a topic that a lot of people are a little bit unnerved about, but I'm glad that those of you who either love snakes or are willing to give them a bit of a chance. So Linda Froger says, I'm so happy to see you streaming. Well, we're happy to see you watching. Ashley King-Chero says they make wonderful pets. Again, as Susie points out, there are a lot of things to consider before making a decision to have a snake as a pet. But if you choose to have one and they're right for you, then I guess they can make wonderful pets.
I often tell children to think about how long they might live, because some of our snakes can live over 20 years. And so if you choose to get one when you're 10, you're still going to have that snake potentially as a pet when you go off to college and maybe when you're even considering getting married and starting your own family. And so it is a large commitment to keep, just to consider before making that final decision.
Ashley King-Chero has another question, which is how many lungs does this particular snake have?
To my knowledge, this one has 2 lungs. One is often elongated lung, and then there tends to be a smaller lung.
Lacey Gill, you asked the question on behalf of Brady, do they blink? Hopefully you got your answer as Susie was explaining about that scale over their eyes. Does that scale have a name, or do we know?
We just call it the eye scale. That's the name I know it by. And you can think about it kind of like a contact lens or a covering over the eye. So instead of having eyelids, it does have that scale, making it impossible for a snake to blink. So keep that in mind and never enter a staring contest with a snake.
Jennifer DeMond is asking on behalf of Jordan how you tell if it's a male or female. So we already said we do not know if this particular snake is male or female, but do you know how you sex a snake?
Many times, just looking at them externally, it's very difficult to tell whether a snake is a male or female. If the snake lays an egg, then it is definitely a female. The only other way to for sure identify it as a male or a female is to do what we call probing, and that is taking and inserting through the cloaca or the vent, the same area where they would go to the bathroom, a little camera and taking a picture to see if there are boy parts or girl parts.
Okay. Ariana Sclerandis, probably mispronounced that, is asking on behalf of 7-year-old Meadow, are rat snakes other colors? So we've talked, this is a black rat snake.
This is a black rat snake, and I'll tell you what, I did bring another snake with me. Let me go ahead and we'll put this one back in its little holding area for just a minute, and let me bring the other one out. It's all right, because it is also in the rat snake family, but it is a completely different color. It's known as a corn snake, or sometimes called a red rat snake. It's another snake that's found in this area, so it's one that you might see outside in your backyard. Hang on just 1 second.
And people are probably curious about these bags too.
I was going to say, often our snakes travel in bags because it does keep them nice and calm and comfortable. It's the way that they feel safe and secure. And I get often asked if they can breathe when they're in the bag, and they can. It's kind of like holding a t-shirt, or as we might be thinking about in today, is our masks over our nose and our mouth, and it does allow us to continue to breathe.
And so this is our corn snake.
So this is a corn snake, like I said, also sometimes known as a red rat snake, and they come in a wide variety of colors. They get their name, if you look at this patterning on their belly, it looks kind of like Indian corn. And that's one theory as to how they were, or why they were called corn snakes. Another thought is that they're often found where corn is grown or stored. Now, they're not interested in eating that corn, but they are interested in eating the rats and mice and other rodents that may be trying to help themselves to the corn. And as I was saying, this is one that is often confused with the copperhead. But again, if we look at those patterns, let me get our picture of our copperhead again. The copperhead has that narrowing at the middle of the back, but if you look at the bands on the corn snake, they stay wide all the way across the snake.
And those of you who are watching are probably noticing a remarkable difference in the level of activity between these two snakes. So snakes are individuals just like the rest of us.
They are, and some days this one wants to sit real still, and the black rat snake wants to move around a little more. One other thing that you may notice is that this one is really flicking its tongue out a lot. One of the things that sometimes makes people a little apprehensive around snakes is the forked tongue that they have. But again, that's a wonderful advantage to the snake. It's an adaptation that allows it to better sense the things around it, because as it's flicking its tongue in and out, it is actually collecting or gathering molecules from the air, and by having a forked tongue, it doubles the amount of space that it can collect those molecules. And then as it pulls its tongue back into its mouth, on the top of its mouth, the roof of its mouth, it has two little holes that lead to the Jacobson's or Jacobson's organ, and it can then wipe off those molecules that it's collected. That helps it to know whether there are rodents around, whether there's anything that it needs to be worried about, and so that it can decide whether it's going hunting or whether it's going to stay hidden. You'll see now, once it's kind of been out for a little bit, kind of figured out exactly where it is, it's now mellowed down and may sit real still. You'll also see that the flicking of the tongue has stopped, because now it's already decided that there's not really any food or anything here in this area. So again, just going to sit and kind of take it easy.
Right. Well, actually, that was almost prescient of you. Amelia Jennings had asked on behalf of 6-year-old Deacon why they have split tongues, and hopefully, Deacon, you have your answer. Holly Baranick wants to know how big, so this is not a species we have here, but how big can a rosy boa get?
A rosy boa is the only native boa constrictor to North America, and they don't get very large. I believe they're under 4 feet when they are fully grown, maybe closer to 2.5 to 3 feet.
Okay. Harriet Walbrink would like to know, how long do snakes live?
Again, it kind of depends on the type of snake, but a snake like the ones that we've brought out today could live over 20 years. Some snakes are going to have a shorter lifespan of potentially 8 to 10 years, and some may also live much longer, especially in human care.
Right. And as Susie pointed out, the reason they live longer is they've got pretty much the ideal circumstances for them. They're given the medical treatment they need. They've got their food on a regular schedule. Things are pretty good.
They don't have to hunt it, and they don't have to worry about predators.
All right. So thank you all so much for these excellent questions. I was worried I was going to have to try and fill all this time by myself, but you are doing an excellent job of that for me. Lou Everman would like to know, do you feed them live or dead prey at the aquarium, and do they get supplements like the other animals?
We do feed them frozen, thawed out food. It's just much safer for the animal if we can feed them frozen rodents, and we feed different sizes depending on the size of the snake. Our ambassador snakes, like this one, will be fed on a rotating about every 10 days. And as far as supplements, the things that we do is that we do give them calcium supplements and vitamin supplements. These are powders that we can sprinkle on their frozen, now thawed out rat. And many of them adapt very quickly. But again, if you think about it, a rat or a mouse, any kind of rodent, is going to have teeth and claws. And so whenever you feed live food, you do run the risk of your snake getting injured. And so we do try very hard to switch them over to frozen, and all of our snakes are eating frozen food at this point.
All right. Callie Ryan would like to know on behalf of her son, Major, if the snake you're holding is a boy or a girl. And I don't know if the situation is the same for this one as the black rat snake, but...
This one, I do believe, is a male. But again, you can't tell just by looking at them.
All right. So Linda Frogger, again, I apologize, I'm probably messing up for the second time, says, I've never liked snakes But Susie introducing snakes at the aquarium. I got a corn snake for my son, and he loved it. So thanks to you, her son has a corn snake, even though she does not like snakes.
Well, I think that shows that you're a very good mom, that you're putting your own fears aside and hopefully gained a little bit better understanding of them.
Kristen Dean would like to know on behalf of 11-year-old Lizzie, are the personalities different between wild and tame snakes? And do they know that we care for them? That's a difficult one.
Those are two really good questions. And are personalities different? I would have to say that based on my experience, yes. Because those that are under human care get used to somebody taking care of them. And so they get used to the sounds and the smells and things like that. So they become comfortable in their environment. However, those that you might see in your backyard, even though it could be a corn snake like this, may have a nice mild disposition, but it would be more likely to try to bite, not because it's a mean animal, but because it's trying to defend itself. I mean, if you think about it and you look at this snake, it's only a couple of inches tall. And so even when the smallest child is looking down on a snake, it can be very threatening. And the snakes that are not under human care, they don't understand that we're not going to try to hurt them. They see us as potential predators, and they don't know if you want a snake for a snack. And so they're going to do whatever they have to take care of and defend themselves. And do they know if we're going to take care of them or that we're trying to take care of them? I do believe that those that are in our care do learn to recognize different people and do realize that we're not going to let them get hurt. I think that's what helps them become calm and comfortable in their environment and able to be good ambassador animals.
And we've got 2 species of snake here. However, that is not the full extent of our collection. We have many other snakes who are animal ambassadors.
We really do. We have a lot of snakes. Again, we want to take snakes out because they do play such an important role in our ecosystem, and they are one of the most misunderstood animals.
What are some other species that we have?
Other ones that we have that are non-native to our area are going to include things like Colombian and Suriname red-tailed boa constrictors. We have ball pythons. We have pine snakes, and we do have a rosy boa that did not come out today. We have Sinaloan and Nelson's milk snakes, which are a type of milk snake, but they then act as a coral snake mimic.
All right. Beth Brellington says, John Robert wants to know if the aquarium is open or closed. It is closed at the moment. Like many locations, we are abiding by statewide regulations to stay closed until the health crisis is over. However, as soon as we're able to let you know about a schedule for reopening, which at the moment there is none, we will be sure to keep you posted on our social channels. So be sure that you're subscribed to and are watching our Facebook page and our Twitter account, because that information will probably be disseminated there as well as other locations. But that's a pretty reliable place that you can get that news when it becomes something we can share out.
And Beth, you let John Robert know that we'll be happy to have him come back as soon as we can.
All right, so Heather McLean asked, how often do they shed their skin? You've already answered that. I asked it earlier, but if you can just kind of recap for if she joined a little bit later.
Yeah, definitely. It all kind of depends on how frequently they're eating, because they tend to shed as they grow. So young snakes are going to shed more frequently than adult snakes. Our snakes fed on a rotation of about every 10 days. They're offered food, and so they're shedding their skin generally about once every 2 to 3 months.
Okay. Tim Sparks would like to know, how do Fisher, age 7, has had Tim Sparks ask the question for him. How do venomous snakes get their poison?
They have a particular gland that's located in their head that is a venom gland, and it produces that venom for them.
And is there a distinction between venom and poison? Because people probably use those interchangeably, but I think there's a distinction.
There is a difference. Venom is something that has to be injected into you, so there has to be some kind of fang or stinger or spine or barb, something that's going to actually poke a hole in you, whereas poison is ingested or it can soak through your skin. So, for example, if rattlesnake venom were to get on my hand, it's not necessarily going to make me sick, as it's just sitting there on my hand. However, if it uses its fang and it injects the venom inside of me, well, then that's when I'm going to run into some problems.
Beth Brellington says John Robert is waving at Miss Susie.
Hi, John Robert.
Is this one of your...
John Robert has come to some of our summer camp programs, and has come to some of our other member programs, and small fry and things like that.
All right. Brenda Mitchell-Haynes says, love snakes, have a sand boa. Well, we love snakes
Very
too.
cool. I love watching them, and our corn snake is doing a good job at kind of moving around, so you can really see how even without legs, they are still able to move. You know, a snake's body is pretty much all muscle. They have a backbone that runs down their back, and attached to their backbone are their ribs, and some snakes can have up to 200 pairs of ribs, and their muscles attached to all of those ribs that allow them to move different segments of their body, and that's what allows them to crawl along the ground or even to climb trees, is using those muscles and their scales.
And I believe you have actually a prop that would be a pretty good demonstration of exactly what you're talking about.
So
I say this because it's so easy to handle a snake and do props.
that's okay. But you can see these are a couple of props that show the snake's skeleton. But again, you can see the backbone that runs down the length of their body, and then you can see the ribs coming off of them. Now, their ribs are attached to their backbone, which is beneficial in that their rib cage can expand as they are eating. Because when you think about it, they can catch that mouse, and they're using their venom or constricting it, they're ready to eat it, and then they're going to swallow it whole. But if their rib cage was stationary, if it was solid, then they wouldn't really be able to expand it or open it up to allow that rat or that mouse to go down into the stomach.
And if you've never seen a video or seen even a picture of a snake eating an egg, their ability to unhinge their jaw is also very, very cool.
Yes. They can eat something that's about 3 times the size of the widest part of their head.
Can you imagine doing that for us? That would be an enormous watermelon, probably.
It would be.
Ashley King-Chero says, how well can snakes see?
Well, snakes tend to have pretty good eyesight, except when they're getting ready to shed. When they're in that opaque or that kind of milky stage, then it's believed that their eyesight is a little harder. It's kind of to see things. But they do have pretty good eyesight. They're just pretty low to the ground, and so they do rely a lot on their sense of smell and taste by flicking up and down.
So when a snake is about to shed its skin, does its behavior change? Does it seek shelter and stay away from potential predators?
Oftentimes they will, and even we can see some behavior changes in our snakes that they sometimes will refuse their food. They tend to be a little more alert, so they may be a little quicker to react to a stimulus in their environment.
So Gemma, or I'm guessing it's Gemma Lang would like to know, is this also a king snake?
This one is not. This one is a rat snake. This is a corn snake or a red rat snake.
Amber McNabb says, that corn snake is very pretty. You are correct.
It's beautiful. And they do come in a lot of different color variations, kind of going from browns to reds. The redder color variations are often found a little further in the south, whereas the ones that we see in our backyard really have about the same kind of color pattern as our copperheads do.
Ashley Fleming would like to know, do corn snakes like to swim in creeks?
Well, they can. They tend to be what we call terrestrial or land-dwelling snakes, but they can swim if they need to.
Dana Smith says, hi, Susie.
Hi, Dana.
All right. Candy Gore says, hello, good afternoon. Is he deadly?
He is not, and he is a non-venomous snake. Now, he does have teeth inside of his jaw, but his teeth are a little different from ours. You know, if you were to put your teeth together, they go straight up and down. Our snakes, this one has no fangs, but like I said, it does have teeth. Those are all rear-facing teeth, and their job is primarily to hold their prey as they're trying to swallow it, because they don't really have anything else to hold on to it with. So if this snake were to decide to bite, it would leave on my hand little marks like pinpricks or scratches, kind of like getting scratched by a cat or walking through a blackberry bush.
Angie Smith would like to know, how fast can snakes move? It looks like these are questions from 2 people. From Mac, how fast can snakes move? And from Lauren, how many snakes are at the aquarium? So how fast can snakes move? How many snakes do we have?
Oh, those are both good questions. And let's see. I really can't tell you how fast snakes can move. I think it does depend on the type of snake, and sometimes it depends on what's going on around them. If they need to move quickly, they can move pretty fast, but I don't have like a miles per hour to make it. And as far as how many snakes are here at the aquarium, Again, I'd probably have to do a little bit of research. I can tell you in the education department, we have about 10 to 12 snakes on a week that come out and do programs like this one with us. And count them up real quick. We probably have about 12 currently in our collection. And then we do have other snakes that are on exhibit in different areas, including here in the Delta Swamp and oftentimes in the Cove Forest.
Right. So hopefully that answers your question. Obviously, some of these questions are a little bit hard to answer if you're away from a computer and don't have access to our database.
Well, and sometimes it changes as exhibits and things change and as animals themselves change. And for example, the animal's own disposition. We may have an animal that does not seem to adjust well or want to be a good ambassador animal. And so then we often can find it a home to make it more comfortable. And that's oftentimes at another institution or sometimes even here within the aquarium itself. For example, some of our animals that used to be on exhibit that are no longer needed in the exhibit spaces have now moved and have become education ambassador animals.
And you've mentioned a couple of times, just as you're talking, about the wishes and desires of these animals, what they want to do. And that's kind of fundamental to our philosophy when it comes to our animal ambassadors. Can you talk a little bit about how you chose the animals that we would have today and our approach to caring for them and using them in these programs?
Especially when we're looking at ambassador animals, these are the animals that come out in the galleries, they go out to schools and the community events, and so they're seen and sometimes touched by lots and lots of different people. And so we do want to make sure that it's a good fit for the program. And so oftentimes we'll do research and we'll find that a particular species tends to have a good disposition, but we don't stop there. Then we want to make sure the individual animal is not showing or exhibiting any signs of stress. And so we do slowly try to work our animals into the rotation of going out and doing programs, and we do monitor them very closely. If they start showing that they are not happy or not comfortable showing any type of stress, then we may make the decision that that animal is not content being an ambassador animal and would be happier being an exhibit animal. And so we do want to make sure that they're staying healthy.
All right. Candy Gore would like to know, does he change color a lot?
He does not change color. They have different color pigments in their skin, and so this one does stay this color. And sometimes this is a shed, and you can see some patterning on them. So really the only time that the snake looks like it's changing color is when it is getting ready to shed. And when it's getting ready to shed, there's kind of a liquids secreted between the old layer of skin and the new layer of skin that makes that old layer of skin a little stretchy, so that it makes it easier for it to shed, to come off. And as you can see, it comes all in one long piece. And so right before they shed, they're going to look kind of cloudy, and right after they shed, their colors are going to be at their most vibrant.
Okay. Kathy Kelly says, beautiful snake, even though I don't care for snakes.
That's okay. Appreciate that you are willing to look past your dislike for them and see the beauty in this creature.
So Ashley King Chero says, do corn snakes have heat pits? That's a pretty specific question. You clearly know your snakes.
That's a good question. And no, corn snakes do not have heat sensing pits. Some snakes do have a modified scale that they can help detect and pick up the body heat given off by a prey item such as a mouse or a rat. But if you look carefully at our corn snake, they would be kind of on the upper lip, and our corn snake does not have those heat sensing scales.
So Harriet Wilbrink would like to know, on behalf of Alana, do they ever get stuck in knots? Which is a fair question because they are definitely nice and twisted up, this corn snake.
They can twist their bodies into all different kinds of shapes, but I have never known one to get tangled up in a knot that they could not undo. And I've worked with a lot of snakes over the years.
So maybe that's just something that you've seen in the Jungle Book. My kids and I just watched that recently, and that does happen in the Jungle Book, but not in real life.
Not in real life.
All right. Lori, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that last name. It's just too many consonants. Brian says, thank you, Susie.
Thank you.
All right. These are excellent questions. Thank you to those of you who have donated. We do have a donate button on this live stream. At this time, as you can probably imagine, with people like Susie continuing to care for the animals, and a lot of you might have even heard our maintenance people who are upstairs enacting some repairs. A lot of work is still ongoing at the aquarium. The animals still are being cared for, and a lot of that comes with inherent expense. And so, if you feel like you're able to and you can contribute to our emergency operations fund, we do have that set up at tnaqua.org under our donate tab. And then obviously there is a button on this live stream that maybe is even easier to donate if you have the means to do so and the desire to do so. We do appreciate every little bit at this point is very much appreciated and very kind on your parts. Tim Sparks would like to know, do some snakes eat fish? And actually this is on behalf of 7-year-old Fisher.
And yes, there are some snakes that do eat fish, especially some of our more aquatic snakes. Like some of the water snakes that we might find around here, it would not be uncommon for them to eat fish or frogs.
And you have already mentioned this earlier in the live stream, but for anybody who's joining later, here in East Tennessee, what are some of the venomous snakes that you may encounter in this particular area?
So in this area, the ones that we need to watch out for are the rattlesnake and the copperhead.
Okay. And do you have any suggestions for how to avoid snakes out of nature?
That's an excellent question. And so as you go along and you're going hiking or you're even walking around in your front yard, there are possibilities that snakes could be resting there. And so we often say make a little bit of noise as you're walking around, and you kind of shuffle your feet. That alerts the snakes that you're around. If you're hiking and you're stepping over logs and things like that, it doesn't hurt to kind of tap that log first. Again, even if the snake is asleep, you're waking them up, giving them the opportunity to move on. And so those are some of the things that I would suggest.
My grandfather always called that walking with a heavy foot.
Yes, and there are some advantages to doing that. You are alerting the wildlife that you're coming. It gives them a chance to kind of make the decision whether they're staying or whether they're leaving.
Andrea Holmes says, Cooper wants to know how fast snakes can move. We already touched on that, but if you have anything to maybe quickly recap.
Yes, I don't have a good, they can move this many miles per hour, but I can tell you that many snakes can move very fast when they feel like they need to, whether that's striking and catching their mice or whether it's trying to get away from another predator. It's amazing that without legs, they can still cover quite a bit of ground pretty quickly.
Harriet Walbrink says, thank you for this informative program. Harriet, thank you for joining us. A lot of the reason that this is informative is because so many of you are asking such amazing questions, and we always appreciate that. Take some of the strain off of Susie and me to have to sort of direct things ourselves. So thank you for watching. Thank you to all of you who are watching. Zaharia Oaknight says, I am so happy I logged in. Thank you. And again, I'm not going to take credit for that. So Susie, you can...
Well, I appreciate everyone who's willing to tune in and learn about snakes.
Ashley King Cheros would like to know, asking a lot of questions today, what's the difference between pythons and boas? They're both constrictors.
They are both constrictors, and I would have to do a little bit more research to be able to answer that question. I'm sorry, I can't.
I think that's a fair answer. We can't know everything. So, looks like we've come down to the end of our questions for today. And again, those have been really excellent questions, very ones I don't know that I would have even thought to ask. So I'll end with one final question that no one has asked, and I'm a little bit surprised. Is, are snakes slimy?
That is a great question, and no, snakes do not tend to be slimy at all. I tell a lot of the kids when I'm doing programs with some of our youngest visitors, if you make a fist and you can feel that muscle, then their body feels muscular like that. And then they tend to have very smooth scales, so they tend to be very dry, and they tend to, I think they feel kind of like the rubber snakes you might buy at a store.
And I think people probably think that just because the scales that give it that beautiful luster,
kind of a sheen to it makes them look like they might be wet, but they're really not. And even with the snakes that have keeled or kind of scales that have little ridges on them, they still they might feel a little rougher, but they're still very dry.
Well, on that note, I think we can go ahead and say goodbye to our corn snake, and thank you to our black rat snake, which is already back in its little hidey hole. Susie, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, to demystify snakes, maybe debunk some myths, show people why they're so cool and so important. And to all of you who have joined us today, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for the excellent questions. Make sure that you tune in tomorrow and every day after that, because we do try and do these live streams once a day at 1 p.m. We try and give you some heads up at about 11 o'clock about what we're going to be talking about and where we'll be. And tomorrow is a new day and a new live stream, so we'll see you next time. Thank you very much. Goodbye.